Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Church Encourager podcast. I had the privilege of getting to preach Kingdom Influence Part 6. And, it was a great intro into the Beatitudes for this series, Dad. So, you're obviously a big help in writing the sermon. And, before we jump into our discussion questions, maybe you can give us kind of a sneak peek of the next few weeks where we'll be headed.
Yeah, so the plan is to sort of work through the eight beatitudes, but a week at a time. I'm not rushing them, and we'll be talking about what it means to be poor in spirit this week. Which the thing is, the beatitudes are so upside down from the culture,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people skip over them because it's so countercultural to sort of, well, what does that mean? But we're going to dig in, and the cool thing about poor in spirit, or theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? And you mentioned it in your sermon. You got kingdom of heaven there in the first one, and kingdom of heaven there in the last one, which means this is what it's all about. And so we're gonna. I think this whole idea of kingdom influence for me is here in these beatitudes, but we had to take 6 weeks to kind of set some stuff in as a foundation, I think, to now be able to talk about it with understanding of worldview and identity and community and all the things that we've sort of got in place so that we can begin to talk about what it's all about. And I love that, something you said, which is it will lead me right to a question for you. Is that why do you think Jesus started his teaching about kingdom influence with heart formation rather than action steps? Because I think that's at the heart of this. So there's a question for you to get rolling with.
Yeah. You've talked about this before, and you could see it in the disciples. They were young guys. These were all young. They were excited. They wanted, like, hey, let's do the stuff, and and that's great to have that. But Jesus is like, hey, if we're not planted here, if we're not rooted here, it's just going to end up being a mess. We're going to kind of work on things in our own strength. Um, so really, the start of everything is being just rooted in Him. Otherwise, we're spinning our own wheels, and with the heart formation, we can do the right things with the wrong heart. I feel sometimes, and that's very relevant to someone like me in ministry. We get so caught up in the things that we have to do that we can just forget what it's all about sometimes. And Jesus is like, hey, it starts here, starts in trusting in Him, starts in being dependent on God, and not it. So that way we avoid things like our own pride, getting in the way. It's like, look at all these amazing things I can do, and it's never it. It's all because of Him that we can do anything. So I think Jesus started there because that's what He needed His guys to be. That gets his core group, his team is like, hey, let's all get this there. We can use sports analogies, if you will. What do they talk about when a team is struggling? They need to get back to the fundamentals. And so the fundamental thing Jesus is telling them is like, hey, it starts knowing Him and knowing what it means to be rooted in God. So, I think that's why He started there in this message.
Good. You said that influence flows from character, which is really what the Beatitudes are about. And so what does that sort of mean in practical terms for your daily life?
Yeah. So, I mentioned pride. Sometimes we'll be asked things or people will say stuff to us that may trigger a response that may or may not always be the best, most Christ-like response right at the start. And if we're not careful, if we're not rooted, we can really just kind of mess it up at first glance. We can become overly defensive. And when I say, like, don't be overly defensive, have good boundaries, and it's okay to stand up for yourselves at times. But there's other times where grace is necessary. And, it's knowing the Lord that gives us discernment. Um, uh, uh, you know, Meekness, that's strength under control. It's not just immediately, like I said, rushing to anger, but okay, hey, let's pause, let's think. And For me, that's practical because I don't, I can get defensive or I can get critical. And I feel as though it's better for me to just be rooted in the Lord and try to respond from that position than in one of a feeling of pride or superiority to others where I'm dominating my will. Because as we said, it's we don't influence the world by dominating it. We influence it by reflecting the heart of the King. So it all starts there. It's reflecting Jesus's heart, and yeah, we ended the message with, what if blessing looks less like comfort and more like becoming like Jesus? And it changes our mindset of what it means to be blessed for sure.
Yeah, and that was there's a question actually in the discussion guide. I was going to say, in what ways does our culture's definition of blessed differ from Jesus' definition in the Beatitudes?
Yeah, blessed. You can think of the I even mentioned it a few weeks ago, owning a Corvette, right? A shiny car. Right? It could be things. It could be very materialistic. It could be, bank account looking good. I think we all have that dream of, if I won the lottery, blah, blah, blah would happen, right? And, our mindset of blessed is having things, I would say cultural, or stuff, ultimately, we're sold things to promote comfort levels, our own comfort levels. And if we're being honest, a lot of these things, they might provide a little bit of comfort at the start, but it's fleeting. It goes away. The only thing that provides true comfort and blessing is Jesus. And I don't want to sound cliche when I say it, but it really is true. We've all gotten things that we think will improve our lives, and then they end up breaking because that's just what happens. It could be blessing is the people around us, and that's awesome. And I think God blesses us with the people around us, our families and stuff. And how much more important is it then, if God has blessed us with those things, to take really good care of our families and our loved ones. And in order to do that well, got to know him and be rooted, or we turn into a raging mess.
Yeah, I think too, blessing. One of the things we do probably is we make it more about temporary things,
Mm-hmm.
when the reality is real blessing is in eternal things, because that's what lasts. Everything temporary. You said it, and it's not that it's bad. It's just temporary.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff. It's just
Yeah,
not the best thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. You said that you started the message with God gives the increase, and when you sort of get that, how does that change the way that we approach, our own spiritual growth and ministry in general, knowing that he's the one that does it? How does that impact us?
Yeah, I'll just speak for me personally. I think it takes the edge off of the competition factor. We all look comparatively to others. There's people my age that are just, what the world would define as more successful. And, that can kind of be like, hey, or, people around us getting favor. And, as you said, it's God's kingdom is abundant. There's enough for everybody. So when we're settled in that, then we can celebrate other people's, successes in the kingdom, and know that, hey, God is with us no matter what. It's not there's only this much, and if you get more, I get less. I think that's just our common human way of thinking. It's a survival thing, and we don't live there. We live in a new creation kingdom, and God has enough for all of us. So in terms of spiritual growth, it just means we can be settled in Him. I know that God is doing a good work in us, and with my own ministry, it's just, again, being settled in what I'm doing and trying to do the best that I can do. Not trying to judge or compare to others, but just to bless them and keep doing what God has called me to do. So I think that's where it's helpful for me, is just being settled that God's got it, and to just do what I've been called to.
That's good. Well, that's great. And I thought it was a great weekend. And I'm looking forward to us continuing to plug together through the Beatitudes next. And like I said, that's 8 weeks. It'll run us up into and through Easter. I think we're going to do Blessed are the Peacemakers for Palm Sunday.
Okay.
And the following week will be Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness. That should fall
Mm,
on Easter. So I think it all ties together really well. And we'll have a great sort of time moving up towards that. So that's where we're heading. But thanks for your time today. And everybody, the Church Encourager podcast is really points at those discussion guides that we put up every week on the app and the website. So check them out, and hopefully you can use them in your own devotional time, or maybe get a couple of people together and do it. And that's why they're there. But we were thankful for you guys listening to this, and we will see you later in the week for the Open podcast.
bam.